Hello, and welcome to Beyond Books, where we go beyond the book. I'm your host. I'm Renee, co-host Raina. She is the co-host, and she is also the official channel mascot. And today, her snack of the day is Wag Chicken and Waffle Bites, which she dearly loves and is very excited to get. So we'll get one out right away. Get her a nice piece. There you go, sweetheart. All right, so what are we going to talk about today? Well, we are going to talk about a book review. This is a book that will count as a banned and challenged book for me, and it was also a buddy read with Daniela of Uncommon Reader. I will put a link to her video below so you can check out both our reviews and really get a sense of this book. So this book I'm talking about now is Giovanni's Room. I have it here in my anthology, and it is by James Baldwin. It is the second James Baldwin book that I've read this year. The first was the first one that's in this anthology, Go Tell It on the Mountain, which is also a banned and challenged book. Go figure. So I'll link that video also below. Now, Giovanni's Room is the 8th banned book that I've read so far this year. Excuse me. The genres for the book are classics, LGBT+, romance, literary fiction. The novel was published in 1956. It is a short novel. It's approximately 150 pages, depending on what edition you're reading. So let's talk about what it's about. Now, I'm going to do my best to give no spoilers here. This book is about a young man. He's an American. He's living in Paris, and he is engaged to an American woman who is also living in Paris. However, at the time when the novel begins, she is traveling in Spain. So this young man, whose name is David, has had some homosexual encounters in his past. And while his girlfriend is away, he gets involved with a group of men who hang out together in the gay bars. And in one of those bars, there's a man named Giovanni, who is an Italian who has immigrated to Paris, and he's the bartender there. So the men who David is hanging out with all kind of have their eye on Giovanni, and they like him, but they're a bit older. David ends up to be the one to go home with Giovanni after they have a long night of drinking. He essentially, in the end, ends up moving in with Giovanni while his girlfriend is away. And so he lives with him for a few months. He falls in love with Giovanni in a lot of ways, even though he doesn't really admit that. But he's having challenges accepting himself as a gay man. Don't forget, this was written in the mid-50s, and he just cannot see a future for himself with Giovanni. This leads him into all kinds of acting out behaviors. First, he sleeps with a young woman he hardly knows. Then when his girlfriend returns, he quickly leaves Giovanni without any explanation, and he returns to living with her. Giovanni, of course, is very hurt by all of this. He has his own issues. He's kind of living in poverty compared to David and his other friends in Paris. Kind of in their eyes, he's kind of just like a lowly bartender, lowly wage earner. They really don't treat Giovanni really very nicely because of this social class difference. Yet they're the ones that are in the seedier parts of town, going to bars and picking up men sometimes for money. So now that's not a judgment. That's just the reality of what their lives as gay men was like at the time. Now, throughout the book, we really don't get much information directly about Giovanni. But we do learn about him through just the description of his room. Dark, messy, disorganized, tumultuous, intriguing, hidden, and sad. At first, David tries to clean up the room while Giovanni is at work, but he just kind of gives up on the idea and ends up leaving the room just as it is. One thing we do learn about Giovanni is that he has suffered some loss and hurt in his life. He acts like he doesn't care what people think of him, but inside he really does. So between being an outsider in so many ways, even among his own peer group, and losing his relationship with David, he's left feeling very, very vulnerable. And this leads us to the tragic ending, and David ends up feeling guilty for all that has happened. So let's talk about the bands now. Now, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because I think it's obvious why it's banned. The subject matter in the book is mature. However, it is not graphic. But I'm quoting from now Bookstar or Bookster.com, and I'll put a link in the description. And it says, it, meaning Giovanni's Room, was published in 1956 and banned in 1977. This book didn't face a widespread ban. However, it faced censorship in several countries and regions in the US due to its same-sex content. In the late 1970s and the early 80s, due to the AIDS crisis, the discrimination faced by the LGBTQ plus community escalated tremendously. And this could have also been a contributing factor to the censorship of Giovanni's Room. So I thought that that was interesting, an interesting observation, because being an older piece of LGBT literature, it was old enough to have been impacted by the AIDS crisis. The other LGBT books that I've reviewed were much newer, and AIDS was never mentioned as anything that contributed to the bans. There was a lot of negativity towards the gay community during the late 70s and then through the 80s because of AIDS. AIDS was new. We didn't know what it was, how it was transmitted. Obviously, there was no cure, and there were no real treatments at the time either. Basically, getting AIDS was a death sentence, and at the time, it was almost exclusively in the gay male population. So there was a lot of stigma, and it was looked upon as a gay disease. Now, here's another quote. This is actually found in several articles, but it's interesting enough that I wanted to say something about it. Basically, it reiterates the reason why the book is banned: blatant homosexual characters and themes. Baldwin's, and then this is the interesting part, Baldwin's American publisher, Nom, suggested that he burn the book because the theme of homosexuality would alienate him from his readership among Black people. He was told, you cannot afford to alienate that audience. This new book will ruin your career because you're not writing about the same things and in the same manner as you were before. And we won't publish this book as a favor to you. So now it stands as probably one of his most well-known novels. So yeah, okay. But one thing I would mention here, I found it just a little curious that his protagonist in this story, David, is a white man. And there are apparently a lot of theories about this that you can read about as to why he chose to have his main character be a white man. I just think, in my own personal opinion, is that Baldwin wanted this book to be about sexual identity and not racial identity, and that's what he wanted it to be remembered for. So I think that was one of the reasons why. Now, one more thing about the ban. I read an article that I'm not going to link. You're going to have to take my word for it. There is, somewhere in the US, a secret bookshelf in a classroom that is filled with banned books, mostly LGBT plus books. And the teacher who takes care of that shelf says that Giovanni's room is very popular. The students are said to be very grateful for the teacher and the bookshelf because it gives them access to great books that they might not otherwise have at their disposal. So I'll let you check and see if that is true or not. But yeah, I thought that was very interesting. So, what did I think of the book? I thought it dealt with really emotional and personal subject matter. The themes of sexual identity and trying to reconcile who you really are with who you think you ought to be are done very well, and they're heartbreaking. The whole story is very emotional, and it has a very tragic feel to it altogether. I liked it. I liked the way it dealt with that subject matter. It has a 4.34 on Goodreads and a 4.6 on Amazon, and that is about where I would put it. I would say 4.5 for this one. So, another enjoyable banned book for me. Another enjoyable buddy read. Daniela, thank you very much. I think you might have been the one that suggested this book, so I appreciate it. Yeah, I very much enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed my review. I hope you'll check out Daniela's review. And again, there will be a link below. So, as always, if you like my content, tell the algorithm by hitting the thumbs up. Be sure you're a subscriber. Have one more snack for the road. A sip of coffee. And have a great day.